Hello. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the NEO-PIR. I understand that in the conference you went, you probably heard a lot. So I did some research that I want to talk to you in this video to make sure that you fully understand what this assessment is all about. In this video, I want to briefly cover a little bit of the history of this assessment. What are the current forms and ways of administration? Talking a little bit about validity and reliability, and finally, my recommendation if it should be implemented in our organization or not. So let's start with the history. So this assessment is probably most commonly used approach on traits and personality today. It was created by Robert McRae and Paul Costa that you can see pictured here. And this is also referred as the 5-factor model or the Big Five model. So it actually all began in 1978, where they create a 3-trait assessment that evaluates 3 traits, which was neuroticism, extroversion, and openness. And this was the first NEO-I inventory that was created. In 1992, they included 5 factors, which was the revised NEO-R that we have today. NEO no longer is an acronym. PI means personality inventory, and then the R is for revised. So these are the personality dimensions, including their facets. There are a total of 5. They were originally 3, as we mentioned. And we have neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and then conscientiousness, with 6 facets below that when you take the test, you're also going to be evaluated for. In terms of forms and administration, currently there are 2 specific forms. One is the self-report and then the other is the observer report. Both actually have 240 items that people, when they take the test, have to answer. Both are on the Likert scale and they are available on computer or the paper version. This is what the Likert scale looks like. It's basically 5 possible answers ranging from strongly agreed, neutral, disagree, and then strongly disagree. And this is actually a screenshot that I took on one of the websites where the test is available. So this is how possibly results can look like. After you finish the assessment, of course, you're going to be evaluated on the 5 dimensions, and they are going to tell you specifically on which of the subcategories you are inclined most. This is basically more in detail on the results. Since you're being evaluated on subcategories, this is sort of what the result is going to look like depending on where and how you take it. And this specific image that we see here is for the conscientiousness factor, and it's in Spanish. But it still gives you a range where you can understand in which areas you are high and in which areas you are low, and what does that mean specifically. In terms of the conversation for validity and reliability, in terms of reliability and validity, the NEO-PIR, both the observer and the self-report version, provide good support for validity and reliability. The authors and other users as well have evidence for construct, convergent, and divergent reliability. And finally, all of the subtests has high short-term retest reliability, which basically means that if a person were to take this test again short-term, they will very likely get very similar results. And now for my recommendations, some final thoughts on the NEO-PIR and if it should be implemented in this organization. So in my final thoughts, I actually want to go over why I don't think this assessment should be implemented. First is cost and timing. In terms of timing, this has 240 characters, which is quite time consuming. Even if you take it online, it's going to take you roughly about 15-20 minutes. And in terms of cost, if you hire a company to provide it to your organization, or if you want to specify it, because this is a general assessment, it's going to cost you quite an investment. This assessment is actually a very generic one. It has a nomoetic approach, which means that specifically your score is not going to go into detail into the specific nuances of your behavior, and I don't think it's honestly predictive of job performance. And then finally, this test was actually designed for adults without overt psychopathology. So this, I think, can discriminate towards people that have certain disabilities or even mental illness. And there was actually a suit filed to the EEOC by a candidate that was not hired because of a personality assessment. Finally, to wrap up my final thoughts, I don't think, honestly, personality tests are the most effective to be used in hiring selection practices. And I included this graph by Harvard Business Review that actually says it's not the best. If you were to use it, I would recommend one to specialize it, because the NEO-PIR is a very general assessment, and I don't think someone's anxiety score, for example, is going to tell you much about how they're going to be a good or a bad employee. And then if you are going to use them, I would say to use them wisely, to make sure that they're not discriminatory, and to also not let it be the only resource or the only indicator for your selection practice or to evaluate someone. Use something else to make sure that you are being as objective and as fair as possible. Thank you.